This is Louis Kavoris, and welcome to Chapter 8. At this point, we've spent most of the semester looking at various ways to look at art. I always call them windows. Each of these chapters is another way, another vantage point, another way of looking. Now we're going to add another window. And this is the window of postmodernism. So postmodernism is a movement, and it's a phenomenon that happened that completely changed the way our art world was. It moved us out of modernism into this postmodern and now into this contemporary realm. I want to spend some time describing it. And one of the reasons when I first started to do research on postmodernism, what I found is that many people talked about it as a fascinating phenomenon and something very important, but no one could really give me a good definition of it. I wasn't satisfied. So what I've really looked for is ways to take something apart that is very difficult to take apart and find ways of understanding it in a very clear way. And what you're going to also find about postmodernism is it doesn't like to be taken apart. It doesn't even like to be understood, because part of its premise is to look at the parts of the world that are not definable and not easily put into one single box. And we're going to get to that when we look at some of the other theories that surround postmodernism. When I first started looking at postmodernism, what I realized is that in order to understand it, we first had to understand some other theories. We had to understand structuralism. We had to understand post-structuralism. And then we even had to get to existentialism and then deconstruction. And deconstruction is a term that we throw around a lot in the art world, but what I want to do is really look at what is a deconstruction? What does it mean to deconstruct? And what we'll learn is that deconstruction is the primary device of someone who is a post-structuralist that is wanting to shift the world towards postmodernism. So, all of that hopefully will make sense as we get clearer into this topic. Now, I looked at images like this. This is Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake. And when you look at this, you think, why did this make such an impact on the dance world? And what's so important about this piece? And what is so revolutionary about this piece? And what we're going to realize is that the roots are in this postmodern thought, these postmodern ideas. Maurizio Catalan also did this and really shook up the world at the Art Basel in Miami. And even things like this we can look at and think, it's not just that he did something bold or something shocking, but the roots of these ideas are rooted in postmodern, post-structural thought. And this too is a deconstruction. Now, postmodernism, as I said, we will look at finding definitions of structuralism, existentialism, post-structuralism, and deconstruction. Now, I found this, when I Googled postmodernism, I found this great image on the internet. Someone made this meme, and I quite like it because it says postmodern, it's our word, don't use it, don't try to define it, and above all else, don't label us with it, even if we apply it to ourselves. Now, this is that idea from postmodern and post-structural that we want this world of confusions. We want this world that isn't just perfectly black and white, that doesn't perfectly make sense. So this is a kind of fantastic meme to start this lecture with. Now, what I also want to say just here in this introduction is that structuralism, which we'll look at, is linked to modernism. That the modernist mind was a kind of structuralist mind. And what they were interested in was a knowable and a mappable world of meanings and symbols. Now, when we looked at language, we really approached it in a very structuralist way. That here's a sign, here's a symbol, it has a meaning. Can you figure out what the meaning is? Okay, we're going to delve into that again, but we're going to look at it from a more post-structural idea that the meaning might be vastly, vastly different for various people. And part of the goal is to create symbols and signs that have these multiple meanings, that confuse us and make us perhaps look at the world differently. Okay, so structuralism is linked to modernism, and what we'll also find is that this post-structuralist is linked to the postmodern movement. Yeah, and they're looking for that world that isn't completely mappable, that isn't a world of signs and symbols that all make sense. So in this world, if we look at a dog or a cat, the DOG doesn't have to mean the same thing to all people. One other thought here. Postmodernism, you'll realize that I sometimes will interchange words like post-structural, postmodern, and sometimes we mix up the various terms here. You know, I sometimes think of a post-structuralist as a person, a postmodern as a movement that happened from post-structural thought. Now, I'll also say, and you'll perhaps make sense later, that this is a very structuralist way of looking at all of this. But if we look at what is postmodernism, postmodernism is kind of an overarching grab bag of term. And it really literally means after the modern. So we're postmodern. So after the modern, we then have this realm. And the post-structuralism is one of the things that also comes after postmodern. And I like post-structural because it points us at the people that are really making the challenge. You know, the way of thinking. It's post-structural thought. Now, it also gives us a kind of firmer meaning than postmodern, because I like it because it locates us in the realm of French thinking. Yeah. So postmodernism and post-structuralism was an idea that developed from a lot of philosophers from France. So a lot of times if we say, where did postmodernism come from? These ideas, we can link it to the French country. And it is a fantastic realm that opened up, and it's a fantastic realm that moved us forward. So welcome to Chapter 8, Postmodernism.